Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm really excited because today I'm joined by Gillian Perkins. You may have seen her on YouTube because she has a pretty big YouTube channel which talks about business and how to grow a YouTube channel, which is awesome. But she also is a homeschool mom. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Gillian?
Yeah, I have 4 kids. They are right now 7, 5, 3, and 1. And I was homeschooled myself as a kid. My husband was too. So it was a pretty natural choice for us to homeschool our kids. And so even though my oldest is only 7, we just started homeschooling when he was really little. And so we're several years into this homeschooling journey, even though, yeah, they're pretty young still.
That's awesome. So one of the cool things about Gillian is she used the curriculum that I use now, and my parents taught me in the way that she is teaching her children now. So it's just kind of like an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I didn't really realize that, but especially because I do use an eclectic style, it also means that I've tried some of the things you're using too. So yeah, so there's a lot of crossover, and obviously like you've done some of the things I'm doing even though you did it out of a box.
Yeah, Gillian does what we would call an eclectic style of homeschooling, and I do a box style of homeschooling. So everything that I want comes in a box, one box, and I don't really have to do anything else. And Gillian pieces hers together on her own, like completely different things.
So something that I think is interesting about this is that actually I would call what you're doing eclectic also. It's just you're having someone else choose the things for you and then you're getting it in a box. So like, yeah, it's boxed and I'm eclectic, but really like eclectic would be more opposed to like classical or Charlotte Mason or something like that. That's more, I don't know, just like homogenous. But really, I think you do eclectic too. It's just maybe how we're choosing our curriculum, which makes it for a lot of big differences like price and how much time it takes and all sorts of different things.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Actually, I think it's really fun. I love how diverse homeschooling can be. Like the different styles of homeschooling, the different things you can learn. Like there's just such a variety. So I'm going to let Gillian share what that looks like for her as a traditionally eclectic homeschooler, and then what that looks like for me as like a box homeschooler that also I guess has a little bit of an eclectic flair to it. So tell me a little bit more about like what you think of as eclectic homeschooling and what that looks like for you.
Yeah, so basically it just means that I'm choosing a specific curriculum, a different curriculum for each different subject, whichever curriculum I want. So instead of using like all Abeka or all the Good and the Beautiful or all one curriculum, I am picking and choosing. But the fact that I'm choosing different curriculums for each subject isn't the only thing that makes it eclectic. It's also eclectic because I'm mixing different homeschool styles. So I'm not just doing traditional and like just using workbooks, but I'm also not doing Montessori or classical. I'm actually combining those different homeschooling styles. So not just combining curriculums, but combining homeschooling styles.
Yeah, that actually is what I'm doing as well. So it's kind of funny that I
haven't
totally
actually consider you eclectic homeschooler too. It's just like you're taking an easier option and you're having to make fewer choices. And well, we'll get into that in a minute.
Okay, so one of the biggest questions homeschoolers have is price. Which one is the cheapest option or the most affordable option for your budget? Like which one is best?
I mean, whatever your budget is, which one is cheapest? You want to know which one is cheapest.
That's true. So Sonlight has like a more expensive program, I would say. It looks like that on the onset, right? I would pay about $850 to $1,000 for a core for 1 year's worth of school. However, once you've purchased that, all you have to get for your other kids are just these consumable products, which are very inexpensive. So I'm basically paying one set price for each grade that my oldest child goes through. And then you're getting to divide that by 4 because that's how many kids I have. So you divide it by whatever number of children you have. But it makes it seem like quite a bit of a more budget-friendly price when you're dividing that because you're not having to rebuy all this curriculum. You already have it all. So that's one of the things I love about Sonlight is it's kind of like a expensive up front, seemingly, but then becomes actually like quite a money saver as the years go on. You're not having to keep buying curriculum. You're able to reuse what you have.
So basically it sounds like you're paying about $1,000 roughly per grade per child, but then if you only have one child, that's just how much you're paying. But if you have like 2 children, then it's basically like you're paying $400 per grade per child, and you have 4 kids, so it's like $250.
Yeah. Which seems like a really good price when you look at the amount and the quality of books that you get from Sonlight.
So basically, you should have more kids to make homeschooling cheaper. That's what I'm hearing. Maybe that's why homeschoolers have so many kids. They're like trying to get the quantity discount. So eclectic homeschooling, at least when you aren't doing it out of a box, as far as pricing goes, the main difference I would see is that my pricing is more flexible. So because you're buying it all in a box, you basically have to spend at least that like $800 to get everything, and then you can spend more, to add more things on. Whereas for me, because I'm choosing whatever I want to use, whatever I think is best, I can choose to use a lot of free resources if I want, and so I could homeschool my kids practically for free. Maybe the cost of some printer paper for printing out free resources online. I could spend more time like making worksheets myself, I mean, obviously you could do those things too, but just like more free. So there's that option, but you also could spend thousands of dollars on each child each year if you chose some really premium curriculums for every subject for every child. So it could be extremely expensive. I mean, I think you could probably spend upwards to $10,000 if you had like 4 kids and you went all out. Personally, I tend to use a mixture of like some free resources, library books, and also like splurge on some curriculums that are really important to me. And so I end up spending probably about $300 to $400 per child per year. So really it ends up to be a fairly similar cost per child per year, depending on the number of children you have. The other thing is, like you're saying, you have a lot of reusable resources, books that aren't written in, and then you just buy a few consumables. Personally, I mean, with Eclectic, of course, you can decide how much textbook work you want to do and how much other things. I do use a few textbooks, and those are sometimes kind of expensive. So I would say that probably half the money I spend is on reusable resources, and the other half I do have to purchase additional resources for the next child. So yours is more expensive at the outset, like you said. Over time, I think that they end up being fairly similar, but it seems like maybe yours is a little more expensive.
I mean, I don't know that mine would be any more expensive, but they sound very comparable, especially if you were trying to make it work on a budget.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally budget friendly.
Yeah.
So one of the things that Sonlight does that is definitely different from the Eclectic style is that it gives you instructions of essentially what to do every single day. And Gillian definitely doesn't get that with her. The program that she uses, the programs that she uses don't usually come with like a full schedule of like read this from this page to this page and read this from this page to this page, and then also including questions and things like that. Those are some of the things that Sonlight provides to its customers that I think kind of is one of those like key features that makes a big difference for its members, and one of the things that makes it a little slightly different from the traditionally eclectic homeschooling.
It definitely seems like for some people it's like you. It's really convenient and you really like having all of the instructions, and not just like clearly you like it, but some people that's what makes homeschooling possible for them, right? Yeah. Because it would be overwhelming otherwise. For me, I've used Sonlight a little bit with my kids, and I do like it. And because it is eclectic, I definitely like some parts of it, right? But the instructions specifically that you were talking about, like the lesson plans, I actually found that they kind of slowed me down, and where they seemed kind of like akin to busy work, to where I was like, I don't want to have to keep going back and referencing. I can just like do the next couple pages with my kids in each book. And so it just felt a little bit more tedious. And so there are pros and cons to everything. You like for you, it's like a huge plus. Like, wow, I don't have to think about this. And for me, it was like I have to think about like reading the instructions.
That's so funny. I've always thought of it as a pro. Like I love going and like doing their little initial in each box. I love like just being able to mark it off and see what I've already accomplished. It's definitely like partly like, oh, I took care of this. I did this task, and I just like it. And I also like that I feel like I know what my kids are learning, and that just like gives me peace of mind.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah. I've always been the kind of person who like doesn't read the instructions that come in the box though, like when you're setting something up, like IKEA furniture, I've got this sort of thing. So yeah, so it just like feels like extra work to me.
That's so funny because I'm definitely the opposite. I'm like, where are the instructions? I have to like, okay, A goes with B here, and that's definitely my personality. So
I'm actually kidding about the IKEA furniture. Everyone needs the instructions for IKEA furniture. But I mean, I can deal with the VCR and stuff like that.
Well, I could talk about the pros of Sonlight probably all day, but I will not. I will limit it to just a few, but some of the things that I find most beneficial or helpful with Sonlight is Sonlight comes with this huge amount of living books that are not textbooks, books that my kids want to read. When I pull them out for the year, they're like, can I have that right now? I'm like, no, wait for the school year to start. But they love all the books. So it saves me a lot of time looking for books because I'm like, we've got this pile of books that you actually are safe to read, like they're good for you, they're going to teach you something, and that's a huge pro to me, that it kind of saves me time in researching what books would be good for us for the year. Like I just know they're going to be here in the Sonlight curriculum, and that's easy for me. So I love that about Sonlight.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as a self-directed eclectic homeschooler, that's the official term now, okay? Because I'm choosing different curriculum, but of course I do want my kids to read books, and my kids love to read books, and I like to read books out loud to them, but it can be tough to find, good quality books. It really can be a challenge to, know which books are good books. And I don't think the biggest problem is that you might find a terrible book. It's like, how do you find the best ones? But as a self-directed eclectic homeschooler, I totally use Sonlight's book lists.
Oh, yeah, which I would recommend, everybody.
Yeah. So even though I don't buy Sonlight's box curriculum, I go and I look at their book list and buy a lot of the books. I don't normally buy them from Sonlight. I normally get them from the library or just buy them on Amazon, kind of depending on whether or not I think we're going to want to reread it. But yeah, I utilize those too.
That's awesome. What do you feel like is the best thing about being a self-directed eclectic homeschooler?
That's quite a mouthful.
It is.
Well, the first thing would definitely be flexibility. I just feel like I have options. I don't feel like I'm stuck in a box, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I can just choose what will work best for each individual kid. And I know that with Sonlight there are certainly options too. And I think that that's the case with actually most boxed curriculums, or even just if you're using, all of any one curriculum, they often have a few little options. But with being like self-directed like this, I can choose really anything I want. And I'm a researcher. You were mentioning you weren't really a researcher. I'm a researcher. I like to look into things a lot. I like to find the best. And if I was using a boxed curriculum, I would feel like I couldn't use that thing that I discovered was the best. And so I would feel really limited.
That's so interesting. And I can see that with like your personality. So I think it really is like a personality thing for homeschool moms. What's working best for them? Like what makes them feel most free? Because I feel freed by the fact that I just can just order one thing and I know it's all going to be great, and I just can like relax in that. So it's kind of funny, just like the different versions of that.
Yeah, and that absolutely makes sense. And I think that that's something that is just like so important, like something everyone should know, is that it's not at all like which is the better option. There's not a best option. Of course, there are curriculums that are bad, right?
Yeah.
That's out there. But of the good curriculums, it's not which one is the best, it's which one is right for you. Because we've got, these different aspects of it. Like one option takes more time. One option takes more prep work. One option is more expensive. One option is less expensive. And you need to find the option that will really check all the boxes for your family, for the amount of time you want to put into it, for your budget, and those different things.
Yeah, so true. I definitely did learn that a lot this last year, actually, when I stepped away from just using only Sonlight and saying Sonlight is going to fill every box and fit every need. And I had to just admit, like, Sonlight cannot always fill every need for every child. And I had to just kind of like do my own thing a little bit with that.
Yeah, that's an important point too. And I actually see that as kind of a different point. Like I was saying, you need to find the curriculum that works for your family, but you're saying like, don't be afraid to supplement.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So even if you are using a box curriculum, even if you're using all, the good and the beautiful or something, that doesn't mean you have to.
Yeah.
You can use 99% that and then be like, but this one thing doesn't work for my child, and choose something different. I feel like all of the pros about being self-directed are basically different aspects of flexibility. So I'll just mention another one of those, and that is that I have the flexibility to do as much or as little as I want. So there are seasons where I have more time and energy to devote to homeschooling, and I'm more excited about it. And so we go more all in those seasons. We do more different subjects, and we do bigger projects with the subjects. And then there are other seasons when I have, other things going on in my life, or maybe we're feeling a little burnout, and we will really cut back and do much more of a minimalist homeschooling routine, and we'll only do the core few subjects. And honestly, I think that if I was using Sonlight and I had these different lesson plans, I wouldn't really feel like I had that flexibility. I'm sure, of course, you could make that choice, but I would feel like I'm getting behind in this subject because I'm not like checking the boxes every day. And then when we wanted to do more, maybe it wouldn't quite be there because it's like, this is just what we're supposed to do. And so at least for me, because my life And I think this is the case for most people. My life isn't super like predictable. It's not always the same.
My life is exactly the same and totally predictable.
Oh, wow. Anyway, so, I mean, my life, like, I have different seasons in my life. And so I do really appreciate that I don't really have any, like, because I don't have those, like, lesson plans that I'm trying to follow, I don't really have any guilt at all about, like, just cutting down to just a couple core subjects for several months at a time.
Yeah, that's definitely something I struggled with. I'm in my 8th year of using Sonlight, and I think it took until about last year to tell myself it's okay to not check every box. Mm-hmm. But it took like years of practice without feeling that guilt of I'm supposed to check every box. So it's something that sounds like you kind of like realized early on, like I don't want to have that, and it took some time for me to learn that I also didn't want to have that.
Yeah, I mean, of course, whatever style you choose, you can struggle with feeling like I should be doing more, you know, but not having someone else have kind of like told me what I'm supposed to be doing did make it a little easier, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Another thing to keep in mind with homeschooling is time. Like, how much time do you want to spend homeschooling? Some states have certain requirements for how much time you spend. Some states have no requirements from doing anything at all. So how much time do you feel like you spend homeschooling on a daily basis?
So I think that probably this is going to be kind of a different answer from yours. I'm guessing that because things kind of come to you ready to go, that you don't have a lot of prep time, and so it's more like steady each day. For me, it is a bit different. I spend a large amount of time, a few times a year, normally doing research, which is something I really like doing, and then sitting down with the curriculums and figuring out exactly how many pages I need to do. I don't like write out whole lesson plans, but I'll be like, okay, this math book has 180 pages, so that means we need to do 2 pages a day to get through it in this many months. And so then every day we sit down and we just do like however many pages I decided we needed to do, or however many lessons. So I have these chunks of time when I spend more time. That's not time I'm spending with my kids, though, which is nice because it's something I can like do in the evenings, and it's something I enjoy doing because I like to research and I like to plan. My time is spent with my kids. And this is going to vary a lot, I think, from one self-directed eclectic homeschooler to another, because you could choose any curriculum you want. My kids, at least the ones who are in elementary grades now, they are doing about an hour and a half of work each day. The older one, a little more than that. The younger one, a little less, maybe more like an hour. So I keep their school day really quite short. I think that's, I mean, we'll see in a minute, but I think that is quite shorter than the amount of time the kids spend. And of course they will spend more time as they go through middle school and high school for sure. But I like them to focus on the things that are the most important things, and the things that where I think that they just get like the most learning for their time, the most like high value work they can do. And that's definitely something I see as a pro. My time, I'm normally, at least at this point in time, I sit there with them the entire time. So I'll spend normally about 2 to 3 hours because, you know, they're working at the same time. So it's not like an hour and a half plus an hour and a half, you know. But yeah, I'll sit there for 2 or 3 hours and help them with their work. And I help them quite a lot right now in the elementary, just because, you know, they need help with practically everything at that age.
Yeah, so mine is a little bit different. However, I actually don't spend like significantly more time than Gillian at all with my kids that are in elementary. So for my younger 2 that are in 1st and 2nd grade, I spend about 2.5 hours working with them. And the nice thing is that, like Gillian said, I don't have a lot of prep work. In fact, there's like no prep work. I'd say that's a huge pro to me, is that there's like almost no prep work. So I work with them for about 2.5 hours where I'm dedicating my time to them. That means that I'm doing like their reading lessons and their math lessons and those things that they need help with more one-on-one. And then I work in the afternoon with my older kids, and for my older children, I'm mostly just checking their work because they're independent, they can both read on their own. So I'm going through making sure they've done their math and reading their papers that they've written, that kind of thing. So I spend about 2.5 hours in the morning and about 2.5 hours in the afternoon. So my school teaching day is about 5 hours long, but for having 4 kids, I feel like that's pretty reasonable.
Yeah, your kids are a little older than mine, so you are actually schooling 4 kids, whereas I'm only schooling 2.5 kids. My 3-year-old is very insistent on doing school. I wouldn't push her, but she really wants to do it, so I spend about half an hour hour with her each day. So something that I think is interesting about that you mentioned, like that your older kids are mostly self-directed, and that was the same for me. I did eclectic style when I was homeschooled myself, and from 5th grade on, my mom did not spend any time homeschooling me, aside from like the occasional check-in, like maybe a couple times a week, like, are you doing your school, honey, sort of thing. But other than that, I read the work and I did it. And of course, some kids might need more guidance or accountability than that in terms of like just keeping them motivated and making sure that they do the work. But depending, of course, on what curriculums you choose, there definitely are plenty of curriculums out there that from about 4th, 5th, or 6th grade on, they're capable of actually doing the work itself completely by themselves.
And again, I mean, Gillian could do this as well with her eclectic, like, okay, this is what you're supposed to read. But I love that in the Sonlight curriculum, my child, so it started out with me doing this, but then my child now can go and look at their list of things to do that day and mark it off themselves, and also have their own accountability of like, oh, I'm supposed to read this, and I mark it off, which I love.
Yeah, that definitely seems like it could be useful for, especially for some kids who really need that. I mentioned that I do some prep work at different times in the year. I don't do a whole lot of actual curriculum prep. I tend to buy curriculums that are pretty like out, ready to go out of the box, where I don't have to actually do prep work for the curriculums. The prep work I'm doing is choosing the curriculums and doing the research to choose them. And then it's also where I'm kind of initially just like looking it over just to make sure I know what's going on and roughly how much we need to do each day. So yeah, I'm not like preparing lessons, and I think that's something important to know, because I actually find that kind of work kind of tedious, and like the same thing you were saying, like, because it's something you kind of want to avoid. So I do like to buy ready to go curriculum.
Okay, so do you have anything else you want to share about your eclectic homeschooling, your self-directed eclectic homeschooling?
Yeah, I think the only thing I want to share is I actually think everyone should be eclectic. Now, normally you would never say, like, I think everyone should use this curriculum, or I think everyone should use that curriculum, but I think everybody should be a little bit eclectic and just be willing to think a little bit outside the box, you know, just be open to supplementing a little bit and finding what works the best for your kids. Just like we were saying earlier on, you have to find the curriculum that works for you. You don't want to just stay stuck to it just because, like, well, that's what I said I'm going to do.
That's really, really, really good advice. And also, like, I just feel like it can give, like, homeschool moms and really all moms, but homeschool moms especially, kind of just, like, just know, like, you don't have to have it exactly perfect, and you can, you know, decide, like, oh, this thing that I loved and I thought was perfect really isn't working the way I wanted, and it's okay to change and be flexible. I've been learning that flexibility is a really good thing, especially with homeschooling.
Yeah, so whether you choose an option that is maybe a little easier and out of the box because you want to do less of that like planning work, you know, or you want to have more options, so you just go for, you know, choosing whatever you want. Either way, you're still making that choice about, you know, what's best for your kids.
Yeah, and that's definitely the most important part of homeschooling. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. I hope that you found this video helpful in figuring out like what kind of homeschool style you'd like to be, and obviously, as Gillian said, like, eclectic is the best, so that's what we learned from this video. Well, thanks so much for coming and sharing all the things you love about eclectic homeschooling and how you use it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me on your channel.
Awesome. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys really soon.